I'm leaving you for my boss, she said. He's successful, unlike you. My name's Alan Murphy. I was 47 at the time, with 16 years under my belt as a financial advisor at a firm called Altara Capital, based out of Denver, Colorado. I dealt with high-net-worth portfolios, steady, detail-heavy work that didn't exactly make me the life of the party. My wife, Christina, along with most people, considered it dull. The call came on a Tuesday evening in March. Christina was supposed to be at a pharmaceutical sales conference down in Atlanta. I was at home, in our kitchen, going over some client files when my phone lit up with her name. "I need to tell you something," she said. Her tone was eerily calm. "I'm not coming back." I set my pen down, already sensing where this was headed. "What's going on?" I asked. "I've met someone," she said. "It's been going on for a while." Her voice had that smooth, controlled tone she used with tough clients, measured and detached. "It's Roger, my boss." I didn't say anything, just sat there, listening to her breathe through the phone. "He gets me," she went on. "He sees what I'm capable of." Then came the twist of the knife. "I've already cleaned out our joint investment account. My lawyer said it was smart. That was the account we'd built up over 13 years of marriage. The one she barely paid attention to but never hesitated to benefit from." "I understand," I said softly. "That's it. You understand." There was a crack in her voice, probably the only moment of real emotion in the whole conversation. "Take care, Christina," I said, and hung up. I flipped the phone over on the counter and opened my laptop, logged into our financial dashboard. Sure enough, she'd initiated a transfer, $220,000, thinking she'd emptied the main investment fund. What popped up on my screen confirmed what I already suspected. The transfer was sitting in the queue, waiting on my approval. I closed the laptop without touching anything. Truth is, I'd seen this coming 6 months ago. There were signs, those weekend conferences that didn't show up on her company's calendar, receipts from fancy downtown restaurants on nights she was supposed to be out of town, a missed call from Roger at 11 p.m. that she scrambled to explain. Being a numbers guy has its perks. You notice trends. You prepare. 3 months back, I quietly shifted our financial setup. I created a new joint account with just enough money to look legitimate and moved the real funds into a trust, one she signed off on without reading a word. She was too busy texting under the table. The system was built to do exactly what it did. Any withdrawal over $10,000 needed both our approvals. I'd made sure of it. By tomorrow morning, she'd find out what pending really meant. Christina and I first met 18 years ago at a finance conference in St. Louis. She was working for Lunar Biotech Pharmaceuticals back then, a young company with a lot of promise. She was smart, driven, and knew how to work a room. I was quiet, observant, always the guy catching the details others missed. We made sense together. 2 years later, we got married. We mapped out our future like one of my client portfolios, dinner parties with work friends, a schedule for building up our investments, and kids by year 5. The kids never came. After 3 years of trying, we sat in a cold, sterile doctor's office and got the answer. My sperm count was too low. Natural conception was unlikely. Christina cried in the car on the way home. I held her hand and told her we'd find another way. We never did. Instead, she threw herself deeper into her job. More travel, more dinners, more nights away. I buried myself in my own work, growing my client base at Altara, earning a name for being reliable, even when the market wasn't. Our home turned into little more than a pit stop. She was always traveling, and I worked long hours. The first serious crack in our marriage showed up 3 years ago. I'd planned a weekend getaway to Telluride for our anniversary. When I told her, she hesitated. "I already committed to a sales retreat that weekend," she said. "I can't back out, Alan. It's with the exec team." So I went alone, hiked the trails we used to love together. That night, when she called, I could hear music and laughter in the background. More cracks followed. We started taking separate vacations. Our conversations turned into short, practical exchanges about bills and the house. Physical intimacy. That turned into something that felt more like an obligation, just something to check off the list. Then along came Roger Stewart, her new regional director. Out of nowhere, Christina was volunteering for every committee, every conference, every special assignment that could land on his desk. "He values what I bring to the table," she'd say. "He thinks I'm underutilized in my current role." I started picking up on the shifts, how she suddenly kept her phone face down, stepped outside to take calls, and began password locking folders on her laptop. All the usual red flags I'd seen in other unraveling marriages, just never imagined they'd show up in mine. I didn't call her out on it. Instead, I kept quiet. I watched, counted, prepared. I started tracking everything in a spreadsheet, odd charges, locations that didn't match where she said she'd be, and withdrawals that blew past our agreed budget limits. Then, one morning, she left her email open. I saw a hotel booking in both her name and Roger's. I didn't say a word, just adjusted my strategy. The morning after her call, I sat in my home office, staring at that same transfer request blinking on my screen. $220,000, just sitting there, waiting on me. With one click, I could stop it. With another, I could let it go and watch her walk away with nearly everything we'd built together. But I didn't do either. Instead, I opened a folder I'd prepared 3 months earlier. Inside was the full breakdown of our financial restructuring. Turns out, the bulk of our savings, $830,000, was sitting safely in a trust, and my name alone, legally sealed off from the account she thought she'd just drained. Then the doorbell rang. Standing there on the porch was Gloria, Christina's best friend and co-worker at Cimera. Her expression was stiff, like she didn't want to be there. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside and led her to the kitchen. Poured us both coffee neither of us touched. She asked me to come grab some of her things, Gloria said, gripping her purse strap like it was the only thing keeping her steady. "She's not coming back, Alan." "I know," I replied. Gloria avoided eye contact. She wanted me to get her jewelry box from the bedroom. And her winter clothes. "You know about Roger," I said, not a question. Gloria flinched. "I tried to talk her out of it," she said. "She wouldn't listen." "How long's it been?" 8 months, maybe more." She finally looked up. "I'm sorry." 8 months. Nearly a full year of lies. All while she shared my bed, talked about remodeling the house, planned holiday dinners. "The jewelry's in the safe," I said. "She knows the code. Always has." But Gloria didn't move. She also wanted me to check if her transfer went through. And there it was, the real reason for the visit. Not for clothes or keepsakes. She wanted to know if the money landed. I turned my laptop around and let her see the screen. "Still pending," I said, my voice low. "Any transfer over 10 grand needs 2 approvals. That's in our agreement." "She's going to lose it," Gloria whispered. "That's her problem." After she left, with a suitcase full of expensive clothes but no confirmation of stolen funds, I drove to the altar office. I went through the motions, client calls, portfolio updates, numbers on a screen. But it all felt strangely hollow. At lunch, I walked down to my bank to start the next phase of the plan. By 3 that afternoon, Christina had called me 7 times. I ignored every single one. Instead, I headed over to my lawyer's office. Mason had been one of my oldest clients before becoming a friend. I handed him a stack of documents, bank statements showing Christina's attempted transfer, credit card bills that matched up with her boss's travel schedule, hotel bookings sent to her personal email account. "This is more than enough," Mason said, sliding the papers into a folder. "We'll file first thing in the morning: financial misconduct, marital abandonment. Colorado's no fault, but this stuff still carries weight in the settlement." I nodded. Strangely, I didn't feel angry. Just hollow. This wasn't about getting back at her. It was math. Cause and effect. Actions come with consequences. It's how I'd always done my job. "She thinks she cleaned us out," I said. "Let her sit with that for now." 3 days went by. I didn't return any of her increasingly frantic calls. On day 4, I came home to find her standing in the living room. She still had her key, hadn't bothered to give it back after blowing up our marriage. "What did you do?" she snapped, makeup flawless but eyes wild. "The money. It's gone." I set my briefcase down gently. "No, Christina. The money's not gone. It's right where it should be." She shoved her phone in my face. A message from the bank. "Transfer denied. Dual authorization required." "Fix this," she demanded. I didn't answer right away. Just walked past her into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. "We need to talk about the divorce," I said. "Divorce?" she repeated, caught off guard. "I haven't even." She stopped herself. "I was going to bring that up. After I got settled." "You mean after you took the money?" I said, calmly. Her expression stiffened. "Half of that money is mine. I earned it." "Did Roger tell you that?" I asked, my voice low. The color drained from her face. "This has nothing to do with him." "No, I replied. It has everything to do with trust in the legal documents you signed. Her tone changed on a dime, switching to something softer, more measured. I was emotional, she said. I didn't mean for things to end like this. We should have a proper conversation. That sudden switch to charm, it was familiar. The same technique she'd used to close tough sales, to win over skeptical doctors at conferences. I'd watched her perfect that act for years. Mason Edwards is handling the divorce, I said. Your attorney can reach out to him directly. Her eyes narrowed. You already hired a lawyer? Filed everything yesterday morning. She started pacing, her heels clicking on the hardwood floors she'd insisted on installing last year. You can't just freeze me out of our money, Alan. I'll fight this. You're free to do that, I said. My calm seemed to get under her skin more than any argument could have. She reached for a framed photo on the mantel, us in Telluride, back when we still traveled together, and threw it hard against the wall. The glass exploded on impact, shards flying across the floor. Roger was right about you, she snapped. You're spineless. No drive. Nothing but a doormat. I looked down at the cracked photo, my smile fractured beneath the spider web of broken glass. I'll need your key, I said. This isn't over, she growled, digging through her purse and tossing the key onto the coffee table. Not even close. After she stormed out, I cleaned up the glass, slowly, making sure to get every last piece. Then I poured myself 2 fingers of bourbon and made a call. She came by. I told Mason. So be ready. He chuckled. I heard the bank flagged her about the denied transfer. Yeah, now she wants access. Good luck to her, he said. The trust is ironclad. The next morning, my assistant at Altara dropped an envelope on my desk. It was from Christina's lawyer, Walter Reed. Their firm's letterhead was all polished prestige, downtown offices, 3 big-name partners. The letter demanded immediate access to our shared marital assets. It also accused me of financial abuse and claimed I was unlawfully restricting her access to joint property. I skimmed to the bottom. Roger Stewart was CC'd, so he was involved directly now, using whatever pull he had to apply pressure. That afternoon, Mason filed an amended petition for divorce. He included documentation of Christina's attempt to empty the accounts without my consent and added a motion for a temporary restraining order, one that would prevent her from entering our house again. They think you're soft, Mason told me over the phone. Let them. It's better if they underestimate you. I didn't reply to the lawyer's letter. I waited. Every move they made now only added fuel to my side of the argument. In finance, patience isn't just a virtue, it's a weapon. 2 weeks later, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Coffee. Important info about him. Hollow Oak Cafe. 2 p.m. today. Curiosity won out over caution. At 2 o'clock, I took a seat in the back corner of the cafe and kept an eye on the door. 10 minutes later, a woman walked in sharp suit, composed expression. She looked around until her eyes landed on me. Joanne Foster, Simra's HR director. We'd met before at company events. Swapped small talk about the weather and market trends. Nothing more. She sat down without ordering, slid a thumb drive across the table. I can't be seen talking to you, she said, voice low. This conversation never happened. What's on the drive? I asked. Emails, she replied. Between Christina and Roger. Goes back over a year, give or take. I kept my face neutral. Why are you helping me? Joanne scanned the cafe, then leaned in. Because Roger's done this before. 3 times that I know of. Always the same pattern. Targets married women who report to him, convinces them to leave their husbands with promises of promotions. Once they've torched their lives, he moves on. And Simra just lets that happen? Her jaw tightened. His father sits on the board, she said. But this time, there's more at stake. These emails involve confidential product data, some of which was later leaked to competitors. That hit me hard. Cold. Sharp. Industrial espionage. Joanne nodded. Roger's been selling company research. He used Christina to access files she wasn't authorized to view. The FBI's already looking into it, she added, voice low. Quietly. But it's serious. As for Christina, I don't know if she's complicit or just got played. She stood to leave. Use that information however you need to. Once she was gone, I ordered a coffee I wouldn't finish and plugged the thumb drive into my laptop. The contents spelled it all out. No more guessing, no more gray areas. The affair. Their plans to leave me behind. Roger's promises of a big promotion and a move to Atlanta. All of that, I half expected. What blindsided me was the corporate theft. Screenshots showed Christina logging into secure research databases after hours. then forwarding files straight to Roger's personal email. Whether she knew the full scope of what he was doing with that data, still unclear. One message from about 3 months back stood out. Roger, once you're free of the accountant, we'll move ahead. Atlanta director title. Full package. Christina, what about his financial skills? Could be useful. Roger, no. Just drain what you can from the accounts. We don't need him. They plotted to bleed me dry and toss me aside. Christina even floated the idea of exploiting my financial knowledge before Roger waved it off like I was a leftover lunch. I copied everything and drove straight to Mason's office. While he combed through the emails, I sat by the window, watching the distant mountains. This changes everything, he said after a long pause. Finally, this could lead to felony charges, corporate espionage, wire fraud, maybe worse. I'm not looking to put her in prison, I replied. And I meant it. I just want this done. Then we use it as leverage, Mason said. She walks away from the financial claims, signs our divorce agreement as is, and we don't take this to the feds. And Roger? He asked, raising an eyebrow. I don't care what happens to him, I said. But I care how this ends. That evening, Christina's attorney sent over a formal settlement offer. She wanted 70% of our assets, the house, and monthly alimony. I forwarded it to Mason with just one line. Time to use the thumb drive. By the next morning, Mason had prepared a counteroffer. Christina would walk away from any claim to the trust. She'd receive a one-time payment of $50,000 and sign an NDA covering everything, our marriage, and her actions at Cimera. Attached was a single email from the thumb drive, not enough to reveal the full deck, but more than enough to get their attention. We didn't wait long. Her lawyer's reply came that afternoon. We need to meet. The meeting was scheduled at Mason's office. I got there early, reviewed our plan, and waited in the conference room. When Christina and her attorney, Walter Reed, arrived, she still wouldn't look at me. Reed, all polished gray hair and $1,000 tailoring, opened the conversation. We appreciate your openness to a reasonable agreement. Mason slid the paperwork across the table. Our terms are firm. Reed scanned it, his practiced smile slipping. This is ridiculous. You're offering her next to nothing. My client, Mason said, is offering silence, which, under the circumstances, is worth far more. Christina finally looked at me then, eyes full of a mix of resentment and fear. You're blackmailing me, she said. No, I replied, steady. I'm protecting myself. Mason pulled out the printed emails. Just a few. Enough. He laid them out in front of Reed, one by one. Reed leaned in to read them, his brow tightening with each line. These are private, he protested. No, Mason corrected. These are evidence of federal crimes, which, I assure you, the FBI would be happy to discuss. That's when Christina's composure cracked. You don't get it, she said. Roger told me it was just market research. Nothing illegal. And yet, I said, you accessed secured systems outside of business hours and sent proprietary files to his personal account. Reed turned toward her, whispering urgently. Christina shook her head several times before he straightened and looked back at us. We need a moment, he said. Mason gestured politely. Take all the time you need. The FBI certainly will. Once they stepped out, Mason gave me a nod. You're handling this better than most would. This isn't the ending I imagined, I said. Not even close. 20 minutes later, they returned. Reed looked defeated. My client is prepared to accept your terms, with one condition, assurance that these emails will not be shared with Cimera or law enforcement. Mason looked at me, waiting. I studied Christina across the table. This was the woman I'd once planned a life with. Sending her to jail wouldn't bring any peace. It wouldn't unbreak what was broken. Fine, I said. As long as she signs today, and we finalize the divorce without any more games. Reed nodded. We'll need to review the final language. It's already done, Mason replied, sliding the paperwork across the table. 2 hours later, it was over. Christina signed away her claim to our assets for $50,000 and my silence. We agreed to sell the house, and the proceeds would go straight into my trust. No alimony. No future contact. As she stood to leave, she paused at the door. Was any of it real to you? She asked. It caught me off guard. All of it was real, I said, admit it. That's the difference between us. After they left, Mason shook my hand. Congrats. You'll be legally divorced in 90 days. I nodded. It didn't feel like winning. It felt like the end of something that had already ended long ago. What about Roger? I asked. Not our concern, Mason started, but paused when he saw the look on my face. What's on your mind? That Simera deserves to know what kind of man they've got leading their sales team. I tapped the thumb drive sitting in my pocket. Even if Christina walks away clean, I said. Mason thought about it. Our agreement only prevents you from reporting this formally. Doesn't say a thing about anonymous tips. That evening, I created a new email account. From it, I carefully selected files from the thumb drive, only the ones tied directly to Roger. I made sure nothing pointed to Christina. Then I sent the documents to Simera's CEO, every board member, and their compliance office. After that, I deleted the account for good. 3 days later, I saw a small headline in the Denver Post business section. Pharmaceutical exec resigns amid internal probe. Roger Stewart had officially resigned from Luna Biotech. Effective immediately. No public explanation. Christina texted me once. I know it was you. I didn't answer. Some balances correct themselves. 6 weeks later, I sat in Mason's office and signed the final divorce papers. He handed me a file, Christina's new job offer, arranged through some contacts in his corporate network. She was now working for a small pharmaceutical distributor in Nashville. Entry-level sales. Big pay cut. No office with a view. Had to sell her car to cover rent, Mason mentioned. That 50 grand won't last long at her burn rate. I didn't feel smug. Just a quiet awareness that choices come with price tags. This was just math. Later that day, I got a certified letter from Simera. Turns out they'd traced the anonymous tip. Rather than threaten legal action, they offered me a consulting position, helping overhaul their financial compliance program. We believe your integrity and expertise could be valuable during this time of transition, the letter said. Joanne Foster had signed it personally. Below her signature, a handwritten note. Justice doesn't always show up the way you expect. I accepted the job the next day. 2 months after everything was finalized, I received an unexpected email from Gloria, Christina's old friend. Alan. I figured you should know Christina and Roger are done. He never followed through on his promises. She's struggling, but too proud to admit it. She asked about you, whether you were seeing anyone. I told her I wouldn't share your life with her. Just thought you should know. Take care. V. I closed the email without replying. The justice wasn't in Christina's fall or in my financial win. It was in getting to the truth. In watching the scales level out, finally. The real revenge wasn't taking something back from her. It was realizing I still had worth. Exactly 1 year after that phone call from Atlanta, I stood in the entryway of my new home in the Denver suburbs. It was smaller than the old place, but it was mine. And from the back deck, I could see the mountains. My role at Simera had evolved. What began as consulting turned into a full-time job, leading their financial compliance division. I built a team dedicated to accountability, to doing things the right way. It was meaningful work, more than just growing portfolios. It felt like rebuilding trust. My phone buzzed. A text from Nicole, the corporate lawyer I'd met through Simera's legal team. It was date number 3, dinner downtown. A quiet spot where we could keep talking about the things that actually mattered, like hiking trails and financial ethics. Topics that would have bored Christina to death. But Nicole? She lit up talking about them. I hadn't heard from Christina in months. Last I'd heard, she'd left pharma altogether. Now she was teaching at a community college in Tennessee. A quieter life. Maybe one with more honesty in it. As I straightened my tie in the mirror, I noticed something. That hollow space I'd carried for so long, it was finally gone. The betrayal was no longer the story. Just one chapter. A chapter that, somehow, had led to something better. I locked the front door and walked to my car. The same trust Christina once tried to drain now funded scholarships for students studying financial ethics. A small, steady way to turn damage into purpose. Ahead of me, the mountain stood, unchanged, reliable. Some things you can count on. Some equations do balance in the end. I'd been right about the numbers all along, but the real victory was this. I finally got the human math right, too.